Hello, anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Good.
I can hear.
So I think all the judges are here, correct?
Three judges. Oh, four.
How many judges do we have in final round? 5 or 6?
Yes, 5.
5,
From what I
okay.
heard, yeah. So I think we have 5 judges here from what I see.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
I am too.
Who is the, do we have the first contestant here? Abhay? Is Abhay here?
Yeah, that's me. I'm ready to go if everyone is ready. Do I need to put my title in the chat?
We have it. Soft skills in school.
Yeah, that's it. Great. All right, yeah, I just want to confirm, is everybody good to go? Everyone's ready? All right, perfect. I'll go ahead and get started then. Okay. So let me just make sure that, okay. Ahead of me were balls flying like bullets, savage war cries, and the squadrons of wild runners. I dreaded this unpredictable combat zone. Recess. Communication skills had never come naturally to me, but the playground was where I learned my first tools. My height advantage allowed me to dominate on the basketball court, and my basketball skills quickly became an outlet to my communication skills, teaching me how to orchestrate plays for my teammates, trash talk my opponents, and verbalize my disagreement after a heated foul, ultimately making me comfortable with social interaction. Elementary school is the most formative time for students to learn these soft skills, which refer to how we behave, interact, and handle situations, such as communication, empathy, collaboration, and leadership that I learned on the playground. But in today's fast-paced environment, students from elementary school all the way to college lack soft skills critical for their personal and intellectual development. The school closures introduced by the COVID-19 pandemic, which deprive students entirely of social interaction, have made this issue especially relevant now. So today, let's first communicate the importance of soft skills in our society. Then we'll empathize with our students as we understand the soft skills shortage in modern school systems. And finally, we'll problem solve as we discuss alternatives to implement these vital skills for students' futures within and outside the workplace. The US first coined these skills as soft because they involve little interaction with machines and have a generalized job application. Whether you're listening to a colleague, presenting ideas, or communicating with a customer, soft skills are integral in the workplace. A study by Harvard University revealed that workers with advanced soft skills are 12% more productive than those who did not adequately develop soft skills during their youth ages. And in an increasingly digitalized age, machines are able to perform basic operational, computational, and even administrative skills, such as bank tellers. So, to this end, the Deloitte Access Economics Center predicted that soft skill intensive occupations will account for nearly 2/3 of all jobs by 2030. And the necessity for soft skills also extends outside the workplace. It's conceivable that soft skills are useful in forming meaningful relationships, creating trust and dependability amongst friends, and for motivating our students and children. But less well known is what Duke University researchers discovered in a study of over 900 students. A lack of social and self-regulation skills, usually learned from the ages 6 to 11, were the primary causative factor for over 1/3 of future crime outcomes. If only there was a place that would teach these important skills to students, say, during the week. Oh, right, school. Unfortunately, while our students are busy analyzing Shakespearean insults and memorizing that George Washington picked his nose at 5:46 p.m. on December 14th, 1781, they're missing out on skills that can teach them how to interact with each other. A poll administered by the NWEA, which creates academic assessments for students from pre-K all the way to the 12th grade, revealed that 80% of respondents, consisting of educators, indicated it's equally important for schools to assess students in both academic and social areas. However, only 10% of students and 23% of faculty indicated that their school's preparation of social and emotional skills was adequate. And unfortunately, This shortcoming transcends the high school level, permeating into college. The Society for Human Resource Management revealed that the most deprived skills, according to college students surveyed, included communication, critical thinking, innovation, and compromise. A rising senior majoring in computer science at Montana State University, Zachary Schollenberger disclosed that college has not taught him any basic interpersonal skills, especially important for a STEM student like himself. And I can attest, not a single one of my friends interested in studying computer science has ever struck a conversation with the girl. Schollenberger expressed his concerns about how to communicate in a professional environment, revealing, "What's the formal way to write an email? Is email the most appropriate way to contact someone? And how do I have a conversation with my manager?" This deprivation of soft skills has held back many professionals from gaining employment. In 2018, the corporate organization West Monroe Partners revealed that more than 67% of human resource professionals say they withheld a job from a talented candidate due to a lack of soft skills. Tech moguls like Steve Jobs explained when interviewing candidates for jobs, he was shocked by their lack of interpersonal abilities. Or, as he put it, most of them were bozos. Jobs explained that he asked the Apple team to present job candidates with a Macintosh prototype and to hear them communicate a passion for their products so he could truly know that they were one of the team. But soft skills can save us from so much more than just becoming bozos or missing out on potential jobs. High-level interpersonal skills are vital for operators of suicide and crisis hotlines, for law enforcement agents, for effective interrogation, and for many other industries in which jobs and lives are literally on the line. According to the Gift of Life Donor Program, the largest organ procurement organization, OPO, in the United States, 20 people die on the organ waiting list each day. The OPO must initiate and lead conversations with potential donors during an emotionally charged and time-sensitive environment to gain donation authorization. Patricia Mulvaney, a senior faculty member of this program, revealed, "There's something about what we say and how we say it that helps people decide to donate." Articles in several medical journals have shown that conversations that communicate support, understanding, and positivity about donation can positively influence authorization rates. High-level interpersonal skills can be the deciding factor when saving lives, such as Greg Howells, who was provided with a heart transplant by the Gift of Life Donor Program after spending 4 months on the donor waiting list, allowing him to celebrate his 60th birthday just 8 days after receiving the transplant. Soft skills are vital in so many areas of our lives, but our education systems are coming up short in teaching these skills. Thus, I advocate for legislation such as the Social and Emotional Learning for Families Act, which has yet to be enacted. This bill proposes that the Department of Education must award grants to local educational agencies to increase the capacity of educators to develop activities and engage in mentorship with students that can teach self-awareness skills as well as interpersonal skills for students to learn to cooperate and effectively resolve conflicts. In addition, I advocate for after-school programs such as Georgia's successful Business Skills Employability Training Program, providing workshops in which students can engage in ethical and social choice scenarios that can enhance their leadership skills, critical thinking, and enlarge their creative capacity. Outside our school systems, organizations like the Gift of Life Donor Program have offered successful courses teaching organ donation, family conversations, and how to handle crisis situations through learning modules, discussion boards, and assessments. And finally, parents can teach their kids soft skills like problem solving, communication, and collaboration by involving them in the day-to-day problems of life, like changing batteries or washing clothes, playing board games with them, and of course, encouraging them to participate in team sports. Soft skills clearly have benefits that extend outside the playground, into the workforce, and could quite literally save lives. So let's not be bozos. Because when we're able to teach students the intricacies of communication, creativity, and problem solving, we can best prepare them for their personal and intellectual futures, allow them to find confidence in their own voices, and of course, dominate on the playground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm double entered, so may I be excused?
You're all
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Anybody has the time?
I think I was muted, sorry. I don't think I started it at the right time, but I got around 6 minutes, so maybe I was like 3 minutes off. I think that's when I realized that my timer hadn't started.
So 9 minutes?
I'd say around 9 minutes.
Are you asking about the time?
Mm-hmm.
I think I got a 10:18.
Okay, so I was around 3 minutes off.
Hi, I was just wondering if the second speaker is double entered, because I'm third speaker, but I do have another round.
Oh, sure, you can go in front of me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
So I think we're hearing from Allison now.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Can everyone see and hear me fine? All right, perfect. And just let me know when you guys are ready.
I'm ready.
You can start.
All right.
I cannot. Oh, okay, only now I can. I think my connection is a little bit slow, so I'm off my camera.
Is my connection fine for
Yeah,
the
I
rest?
can see you now.
I can see you fine.
All right, okay.
We can give I don't know which judge said that, but we can give them a moment and see if they can see it.
Are all the judges good to go? All right, okay. I'll start. Once when I was 5, my parents made the wise decision of leaving me home alone with my 2 brothers, who seized this opportunity to fulfill their lifelong goal. Wearing my Peppa Pig onesie. Without my parents there to tattle to, I desperately called the only other people I knew could help me. The police. I grabbed the home phone and repeatedly dialed 911 until sirens reached my house. Yet, upon hearing the details of my trauma, the officer at the front door told preschool me that I would be arrested should I bother him like this again. Terrified, I slammed the door in his face. I was convinced the police just threatened to show up with assault rifles, grenades, giant camo trucks, and helicopters should I utter another word. Now, while that horrifying childhood experience has become a mere lighthearted memory, such fear has taken over communities nationwide. After all, this notion of police armed in this exact manner is actually a completely accurate depiction of today's law enforcement. See, according to the Defense Logistics Agency, through a program known as 1033, the Secretary of Defense has permanent authority to transfer excess military equipment to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. Simply put, in an attempt to be resourceful, the government arms police with unneeded military goods. Yet I fear that along the way, our police begin to use this gear for militarized violence amidst passive public spheres. So today, let's first examine the history of the 1033 program, and next, its current unchecked growth. Then, we'll address its implications on our communities, especially those of color. And finally, let us explore a legislative solution that diffuses the systemic roots of this brutality. Because our citizens ought to be protected by the police, not from them. 1033 was first created in 1990 as a smaller and more restrictive program. It enabled the DoD to transfer equipment such as small arms and ammunition to 1, eliminate military surplus, then 2, assist in the federal war on drugs. Even then, arming police created dangerous tensions in the public sphere. So when 1033 was expanded 6 years later to allow all law enforcement to acquire property for apprehension, it's no surprise that a subsequent increase of police brutality remains a testament to the program's horrific shortcomings to this day. Now, while 1033 can entail non-controlled transfers of basic items like office equipment, my concern regards controlled transfers, which include free military-grade arms and vehicles. You see, as 1033 has become a nationwide program, our government has allowed this seemingly innocuous weaponry to fester in our communities unchecked. And the ACLU corroborates, sharing that over $7 billion worth of equipment has been transferred to 8,000 agencies nationwide, with more than half transferred in the last decade. And even worse is the sheer ease at which these transfers take place. 1 rifle circulates for every officer, a Humvee for every 3, and an armored MRAP vehicle for literally any agency. All the police have to do is ask. The Government Accountability Office found the flaws in this lack of oversight a few years ago. GAO Director Zena Merritt initiated a completely fake police agency to test just how recklessly free 1033 gear is dispersed. Then she compared the $1.2 million worth of unverified M16 rifles and pipe bomb equipment that arrived within days to buying Legos off of eBay. When it's that easy for fake cops to snatch up military equipment, how can we possibly keep other agencies accountable? And what's even more destructive is that despite following pressures on the DoD to impose verification procedures and internal assessments, later reports still found supposedly banned equipment to have increased civilian deaths by 129%. Which brings us to 1033's damaging implications on our communities. Increasing controlled transfers breed a culture of militarism wherein police depend on violence to interact with communities. And this mentality simply normalizes a cycle of violence that is nearly inescapable. 1033 is arming police for a bloodbath, and families can either suffer silently or face a spiraling escalation. And this is especially true in communities of color. Militarized police are more often deployed in areas with high concentrations of African Americans, exacerbating historic tensions between marginalized groups and authority. Essentially, our police are being transformed into soldiers, and our Black and brown communities morphed into battlegrounds. And it's sickening. It's sickening when an unarmed teenager was biking near school, when an officer shot him 8 times with a semi-automatic military gun. His name was Fong Li. And it's sickening when a 7-year-old black girl was caught on fire by a flashbang grenade and then shot in the head by a military firearm when SWAT-style police raided her home. Her name was Ayanna Stanley Jones. And it is sickening when an Austin teen my age had a 12-gauge lead shotgun fired in his face by police at a peaceful Black Lives Matter protest. And his name was Brad Ayla. This endless cycle of bloodshed has been fueled by 1033 for far too long. And now we are swimming in the consequences of careless inaction. A society where we can't even find a difference between our police and our military, our neighborhoods and our battlefields. 1033 gear may be free for the police, but we pay with our lives. It is high time we recognize that the recirculation of military gear for the sake of resourcefulness will never justify the brutality. Consequently, I propose a 3-pronged plan to ensure that police properly carry out their inherent purpose, protecting the safety of our communities. And so, the first step is prevention. To begin addressing police violence, we must start with eliminating the materials that enable its escalation. Thus, the Department of Defense must ban all transfers of controlled equipment, which include military gear. The second step is transparency. Even with the removal of controlled equipment, Gao's concerning fake police agency experiment reminds us to keep transfers monitored. As a result, 1033 must be controlled by congressional approval. Moreover, transaction notices ought to be made publicly accessible to build trust between citizens and police. And this brings us to the last step, de-escalation training. While moving access to military gear increases safety, just as important is teaching our unarmed police that responses extend beyond escalation. If this sounds far-fetched, it isn't. San Francisco saw a 24% decrease in use of force in police and citizen encounters as a result of nonviolent training academies. Let us look to these instances to mandate broader nationwide programs as models for change. Because it is time we acknowledge that the police are not soldiers deployed to threaten or harm, but instead peacemakers to keep us safe. And as citizens, we have the power to protect our communities through pushing legislation. So together, let us dress the wounds inflicted by 1033 and address the root causes of police brutality. Thank you.
Thank you.
And may I be excused to my next round?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for judging. Good luck, everyone.
So I guess we can go back to second speaker, or we can follow to fourth.
Okay, I'm second. Should I go?
I'm good with that.
Fine.
Quick question. Time for the previous speaker for Allison.
I have 10:03.
Sorry, can you say that again or type it in the chat? Thank you.
I have a 10:14.
10:14. Thank you.
All right, my speech title's in the chat. Is everyone ready? And can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do.
I think my sister is afraid of toasters. In her words, the toast just springs up out of nowhere. I haven't eaten toast in 7 long years. But while my sister no longer has to deal with her fears of toasters around the house anymore, I have to deal with my fears more than ever before. You see, I'm afraid of injections. At the doctor's office, my dad would always tell me to look out the window, where I could see my favorite airplanes passing by. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, ow! I felt a piercing pain in my left arm. Yeah, it's safe to say I never trusted my dad again after that one. But the shots themselves never really hurt. I just thought they did. But after spending hours upon hours complaining to my parents about having to get a shot, I wasn't about to admit that they were right all along. So I did what any normal and responsible teenager would do. I shrieked, cried, and slightly overreacted to a needle in my arm. And that was yesterday. Needless to say, I didn't like the doctor's office very much. But as it turns out, teenagers can be pretty selfish. I mean, who would have thought? I am very clearly the model child, and yet somehow she's still the favorite. But hey, despite all my faults, at least I'm not afraid of toasters. But I never really stopped to think about how my actions, and yes, overreactions, affected the doctors who treated me. And while dealing with a little kid who's afraid of shots isn't that big of a deal, doctors have much bigger problems. And that's why we need to ensure that our doctors are properly taken care of. Because when the very people who dedicate their lives to saving ours face issues themselves, it's the least we can do. For most people, asking for help with mental health issues, trauma, and PTSD has fortunately become more and more normalized in society. And that's allowed so many people to regain full control of their lives. Yet, for some reason, this number excludes doctors all across the nation. Some people tend to think that doctors can just take care of themselves. But while we like to think of doctors as superheroes, the reality is that doctors are human beings too. And that's exactly why the government hasn't stepped up to help them today. So first, let's start by filling up our syringes with a deadly dose of reality, as we understand why doctors often don't and can't reach out for help with mental health issues. Then, we'll put on our gloves, as we find out what happens when doctors are forced to deal with these issues all on their own, before finally administering a safe and painless shot by finding a solution to this problem. Most people tend to think that doctors can just take care of themselves. Like I said earlier, the whole superhero paradox. The problem is, while doctors have tons of benefits in their lives, high salaries, tons of respect, and fulfilling jobs, the fact remains that they have their share of problems too. For example, long and often unpredictable hours, the stress of saving lives, and traumatizing patients, such as myself. And with all of this on their plate, it's only natural for doctors to have to deal with all kinds of mental health issues, ranging from mild to severe. But the problem is, doctors don't have the same access to treatment that we do. And the reason behind this lies in a 4-letter acronym, MLAQs, or Medical Licensure Application Questions. Wow, that was more complicated than my sister's fear of toasters. But these MLAQs often include unfairly vague questions about past mental health illnesses, such as, have you ever been treated for a mental health illness in the past? And doctors know that if they answer yes to this question, they run a high risk of losing their medical license altogether. As in fact, studies show that the presence of generic MLAQs are directly correlated with doctors refusing to seek out help in the first place. Because in states with more specific and therefore more fair questions, doctors are more willing to seek out therapy. As a result, we see more and more doctors across the nation keeping quiet and dealing with these issues all on their own. And that's my concern. Because when doctors already focus on saving our lives as a part of their job, if they can't ask for help, who's going to do the same for them? Stress among medical professionals has spiked over the past half century. The exceptional stress for being a physician is comparable to being a PTSD victim, with trauma stacked upon trauma. This puts medical professionals at a tremendous risk of suicide and even burnout. But it only gets worse from there, because these are the same doctors who feel like they cannot reach out for help without losing their medical license. In fact, during COVID, only 13% of doctors even reached out for help during the added stress of the pandemic. Picture this: hospitals overflowing, widespread panic, not enough supplies. Sound scary? That was the living nightmare of thousands of doctors across our nation. But what makes it worse is that these doctors felt trapped and alone in these situations. Dr. Scott Jolly spent the pandemic working overtime to ensure that his patients got both the help and the care that they needed. After exhausting hours, sleepless nights, and an unending amount of stress, Dr. Jolly was diagnosed with PTSD. However, in fear of losing his medical license, Dr. Jolly made his wife promise to keep it a secret, just so he could continue working the next day. Not even 2 weeks later, Dr. Jolly took his own life. His family feels that the medical profession failed a doctor who dedicated his life to saving the lives of others. And they are absolutely right. Because Dr. Jolly was shot down not once, not twice, but repeatedly by hospital management when asking for help, knowing that there was nowhere else he could turn. And the sad reality is that Dr. Jolly is not just an isolated story, but rather one of thousands of American doctors across the nation, suffering because of this flaw in our medical system. Thus, I advocate that the United States federal government implement a nationwide regulation, forcing each and every state to modify their MLAQs so that we no longer penalize doctors for reaching out for help with mental health issues. Mayo Clinic professor Dr. Dyrby explains that the problem lies in how they ask. In some states, the question is really broad. Instead, she advocates for states to ask a more specific question that properly assesses a doctor's ability to do their job, such as, are you currently suffering from any condition, mental or physical, that prevents you from doing your job? This way, doctors know that they can answer yes to this question while at the same time receiving help and doing the job that they love. The only reason this question has ever been asked in the first place is to ensure that those who are unfit to practice medicine don't receive their license. Yet, ironically, it ends up affecting those who do. This change in the phrasing of the MLAQs has been long overdue, and it is high time the government acts. The government has unknowingly been pushing doctors into silence for far too long. But implementing this legislation will finally put an end to it. So yeah, maybe the next time I'm at the doctor's office getting a shot, I'll just grit my teeth and push through it. Because while it's okay for me to be scared of injections, and yes, for my sister to be afraid of toasters, it is not okay for us to let doctors be afraid for their lives while doing what they love. Thank you.
Thank you. Who do we have next? I believe it's Jeremy Wang. Is anybody else double or cross-entered and needs to leave?
If anyone else has to go first, I can wait. But if not, then I can go.
I think Shuyi. True. Oh, I just cleared it. Let me see. Did someone get the time for
For the last person?
No, Drew. I believe it was one of the first or the second. Oh yes.
Drew was second. Yeah, Drew was the second person who just spoke now. He's at 9:37.
Sorry, do we have a dedicated timer? Because I feel like I'm asking for timer, time question every single time. And I want to just know if there's a dedicated timer.
I mean, if anybody else has a different time, as long as they're in the time, then we should be good.
Yeah.
So I think in the ballot we need to document the time. So I'm just asking.
Yeah, we can put. I only put it on like my phone. That's what I'm currently using. But we can do a room timer if that helps everybody too. Good with that?
No, just like a dedicated person timing it and then letting everybody know the time at the end. That's it.
Okay.
I can do that.
Thank you. So what was the time for the last speaker?
9:37.
9:37. Thank you.
So I can count 3, then you start. Jeremy?
Oh yeah, is everyone ready for me to start? I just put my title in the chat box so you can see it there. And just before I start, like everyone can see me fine, right? There's no problems. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So just to repeat it one more time, the title of my speech is Left Behind, and we can start the time when I start talking. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's all cleared up. Okay, nice. Yeah. In 4th grade, our teacher gave us a brand new project to work on, ancient civilizations. Now, luckily for me, I got the Romans. As I embarked on my journey learning all about this fascinating civilization, I soon realized one thing. The Romans were disgusting. I mean, did you know that the Romans liked using their pee for mouthwash? It's no surprise that they had a great recycling system. And I also learned that the Romans liked using goat poop for energy drinks. Yikes. But one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Romans was, well, what happened to them? I mean, seriously, they were so advanced for their time, amazing infrastructure and architecture, and then they just, well, disappeared, like One Direction. Well, according to a recent study done in 2017, the cause of the Roman disappearance was actually their water system, more specifically their use of lead pipes. Now, unfortunately for us, it seems as if America has the exact same problem, because across our country, millions of Americans are being left behind in the ancient world, and they're being forced to drink water from dirty, contaminated lead. Because our government refuses to act or even recognize this problem, millions of families are being denied the right to have clean water. So today, let's first begin by understanding the problem. who and where these lead pipes affect. Next, we'll see the dangerous hazards that they pose to our health. Before finally, let's find a solution to this problem. Now, contrary to what many people might think, lead pipes weren't always an issue. This crisis began in the 20th century when our lead industry began lobbying our government to lay down as many lead pipes as possible, convincing everyone that they were perfectly safe, but hiding the dangerous effects that they had. Even today, lead pipes are prevalent all across our country. According to the Natural Resource Defense Council, lead pipes exist in all 50 states, delivering water to over 22 million Americans. That's the population of the entire state of Florida. Even more, according to a recent study done on 3,000 homes in Chicago, 2/3 of all homes contained elevated levels of lead in their drinking water. And it's not just that these lead pipes are made out of lead, but also that they are severely outdated. Just like how paint falls off walls after some time, the lead from these lead pipes eventually seeps into our water, contaminating it. And that is my concern, because lead in water is just not something that we can underestimate. According to the CDC, the maximum content level of sulfate and chloride in water, which is the maximum amount of a substance in water before that water is no longer safe to drink, is 250 milligrams per liter. But for lead, that number goes down to 0. That really should be no surprise to us, because we know that lead is directly correlated with brain, heart, and kidney damage, increased blood pressure, and cancer. But unlike smoking a cigarette, we can't just stop drinking water. Water is a right, just as much as it is a necessity. And we as Americans have a right to have clean drinking water. But because of these lead pipes, well, we can't. And nowhere are these lead pipes more prevalent than in low-income and minority communities, where decades of neglect have left these communities with over 2 times the amount of lead than anywhere else. According to a recent study done across various universities in the United States, Black students have the highest blood lead level in the entire country, which is especially damaging given that not only does increased levels of lead increase rates of cancer and heart disease, but they also directly decrease intelligence and IQ. That same study found that Black students experience a 50% decrease in their grades caused by drinking lead-contaminated water. And it's not just one study that says this. Numerous studies have all been done that all come to the same exact conclusion. Increased rates of lead, decreased GPAs, and high school graduation rates. Now, if we really want to begin combating systemic racism, whether it be in education or criminal justice, it has to begin with stopping lead from entering into our water. But if the effects of lead still seem abstract or far-fetched, they aren't, because we've seen it before. Flint, Michigan, 2014. You probably heard it on the radio, maybe saw it on the news, but for millions of Americans, they lived it. People like Gladius Williams, who needed to drive her car 10 miles every day just to take a clean shower. People like Robert Skidmore, who ingested so much lead that he eventually died. Because in 2014, Flint's decades-old lead pipe system finally gave way, releasing toxic levels of lead into their drinking water. Now, despite the foul color, rusted smell, and even bad taste, the residents of Flint were forced to drink water that they knew was slowly killing them. Every day, when we turn on our faucets and sinks, we see clean, drinkable water. But for the residents of Flint, they see water that is brown and orange colored. If that seems ridiculous and absurd, well, it's because it is. It's absurd. When the 7th largest city in Michigan, with a population of over 100,000 people, can't even take a clean shower. And it is absurd that a city located just a few miles away from the largest freshwater resource in the world is forced to drink brown-colored water. And it's absurd that we as America can consider ourselves a developed country, even an advanced country. We can't even deliver on our most basic obligation to our citizens, giving them the right to have clean drinking water. But what's even scarier than an entire nationwide water crisis was the reaction that followed it, or rather, inaction. Because despite the entire Flint fiasco, our politicians have continued insisting that removing lead pipes is too costly, too much time, too much work. But they've continued using these same excuses again and again and again. According to experts, the immediate reaction following Flint is that Flint was a unique situation that would never happen in my community. But let me ask you this. Do you think that the people of Flint thought that their community would be drinking water from dirty, contaminated lead pipes? Of course not. That type of mindset is exactly what got us here in the first place. And it's a mindset that needs to stop. So to solve for this problem, I advocate that the United States federal government fund the removal and replacement of all lead pipes on a nationwide scale. Now, if this seems like a daunting task, well, it really isn't. According to the EPA, removing and replacing all lead pipes would cost at most $47 billion. And to put that into perspective, Biden's infrastructure bill that passed a few months ago cost $1 trillion, which means that removing all lead pipes on a nationwide scale would be less than 5% of that. And we've already seen success on a small scale. For example, in Newark, New Jersey, the city was able to replace all 23,000 of their lead lines in under 2 years with no cost to residents. Similarly, in Lansing, Michigan, and Madison, Wisconsin, these cities found massive amounts of success removing all of their lead pipes. Even more, removing lead pipes would actually save money in the long run. According to a 2019 report done by the US Department of Health, removing lead pipes would increase community productivity so much that it would save over 2 times the amount of money it cost. Because at the end of the day, safe, clean drinking water, it's a pretty basic human right. People shouldn't have to be worrying about their water giving them cancer or hurting their IQ. We've seen time and time again what inaction has led to. So, if we don't want to end up like the Romans, then we have got to start taking action now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think, do we have next? Joyce Yang, and I think we do need your title question, or is it TBA?
I put the title in the chat.
I have a timer for 9:26.
Are all the judges ready to begin, or should I wait a second?
I think someone asked what the time was for the last speaker.
Joyce, are you there?
I'm ready to begin whenever all the judges are ready. Okay. And then just making sure, can everybody see me and hear me all right? Okay.
Yes.
Good. If there is one thing I've learned in my life, it's that you should never, gamble with your drunk Chinese grandma. That's right, I have PTSD from poker games with a 4'6" Asian lady. She was so into it. I think she was fulfilling her dream of being some kind of Asian mafia boss. Yeah, my friends baked cookies with their grandmas, but not mine. Our love language was poker chips, cash, and Chinese cursing. But it wasn't until recently that I realized that my rocky relationship with gambling was emblematic of contemporary American economics. Now, what if, instead of poker chips, financial stability and people's futures were gambled with no guarantee of payoff? Say hello to the gig economy crisis, where people make a living through on-demand work. It's all around us. Amazon delivery, Uber rides, and DoorDash ordering, just to name a few. The gig economy's facade of easy earnings and being your own boss conveniently hides the adversities that gig workers battle. And that's a major issue. According to the International Labor Organization, nearly 43% of the American workforce are gig workers. That's 55 million people. 55 million lives changed, and 55 million families living under constant flux. So today, let's first put our cards on the table to see how the gig economy crisis has evolved. Then we'll examine the losing hand gig workers have to play, before finally coming up with some solutions that are not so much of a gamble. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to admit, we're pretty spoiled. I mean, Ubers arrive in minutes to take us to any destination. DoorDash delivers chicken nuggets to my doorstep. And Amazon sells Donald Trump punching bags. Perfect for relieving your stress. Now, jokes aside, from the lens of our societal eyeglasses, we'd like to think of these middlemen corporations as the epitome of innovation and entrepot of economic growth. However, today's bonanza of app-based companies are nothing more than corporations powered for and by money, which begs the question, is the gig economy good for workers or just good for the business? And that's where the problem begins. At its crux, corporations such as Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Amazon Flex, and Instacart are simply transactional facilitators who prioritize profitability over the protection of workers. Every day, we fuel Amazon with more than 1.6 million orders and collectively spend more than 17 million every hour. Yet the Amazon Flex drivers who deliver each package to our doorsteps earn as little as $5 an hour. The modern day magic carpet we enjoy, Uber, profited a whopping $6.8 billion in 2020. That same year, a UC Berkeley Labor Center study showed that the pay guarantee for Uber and Lyft drivers was just $5.64 an hour. The fact is, gig workers are gambling that it will be worth it to have flexible hours, or gambling to be out of an office, but that gamble simply isn't paying off. So nowadays, it's clear corporations are getting the better end of the deal. However, the full magnitude of the gig economy crisis can't be explained by corporations alone. Introducing America's most hated federal agency, the IRS. Now, the IRS is like a divorcee. They never answer your calls until they come asking for money. In fact, if you call the IRS, there is a 1 in 50 chance you'll actually reach a human being, leaving 3 out of 10 Americans feeling quote unquote clueless when it comes to taxes. Now, instead of the upfront, easy cash that is promised, gig workers are hit with arbitrary, complicated, and inconsistent tax rules. Unlike any other tax brackets, independent contractors are the only group that have to pay tax payments 4 times a year. Miss one payment and you'll face a compounding tax bill and penalties. And if you simply don't have the money, the IRS can break into your bank account, paycheck, welfare, even your veterans aid. What's more, it doesn't matter if you're an Uber driver or a full-time dog walker. All freelancers are subject to a self-employment tax, which is an extra 15.3%. So even though gig workers aren't considered employees, they're paying the same federal income tax as 9-to-5 workers in addition to a self-employment tax. No wonder my parents call the IRS the Income Removal Service, or as my grandma likes to call it, it really stinks. The IRS is playing catch up, trying to shove old tax policies on a new economy. Now gig workers' financial health and lives are the collateral damage. I hope it's becoming clear. Gig workers are on a leash and clawing their way through an industry rigged to financially exploit and rob them. Rob them of their wages, security, health, relationships, and future. This economic monster is close to home. Outside of a 24-hour fitness in San Mateo, delivery workers call their cars home. And what's even worse, gig workers in Los Angeles, 16,500 of them are also living in their cars. Worst of all, things aren't looking up. Freelancers, 85% of them are earning less than $500 a month. $500 a month is a non-livable wage. If health is wealth, then gig workers are going bankrupt. Just last spring, Amazon admitted to Amazon Flex drivers pushed to urinate in water bottles to avoid losing wages. The gig economy is trading away workers' health for our convenience, workers' wages for big profits, and workers' lives for the sake of growth. With the number of freelancers projected to exceed 90 million by 2028, there is no better time to fix this catastrophe than now. Therefore, I advocate that Congress pass this two-part plan to exonerate our nation from this social and economic pest. First, the United States federal government must enforce salary transparency on all gig corporations. It's been done before. Just last year, the European Commission proposed the EU Platform Workers Directive to enhance algorithm transparency as a lever to tackle problematic working conditions. This package of transparency measures gives workers the right to contest automated decisions and obligates platforms to provide workers with information on the algorithms that are used to control their labor. By taking this human-in-command approach, an even playing field between workers and gig corporations is created. Second, gig workers must be reclassified as employees. Proposition 22 was a 2020 California ballot initiative where gig corporations labeled their workers as independent contractors rather than employees. Now, this effectively denied drivers health insurance, minimum wage, sick leave, unionization rights, and overtime pay. By appealing this proposition, 55 million individuals will regain the dignity of work they deserve. Now, you and I have played a part in this orchestrated crisis. We've come face to face with the victims. It's the people that drive you to the airport, deliver your food and groceries at your bidding, and bring every Amazon package to your doorstep. The time has come for us to put an end to this economic nightmare. And I'm certain we have a good hand of cards to flush out this financial crisis. Care to bet? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have the next speaker in the room?
Yes, I am here. Are all the judges ready? Okay, and then is it also all right if I time myself as well? Okay.
Can you confirm on your topic, please?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Just want to make sure it's right. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, can I begin now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Last year, I was researching for my chemistry final about combustion and theoretical yield and whatever other chemistry jargon I could think of when I stumbled across the term greenwashing. It looked intriguing, so I clicked on the link from Business News Daily and learned that greenwashing is when a company or organization spends more time and money on marketing themselves as environmentally friendly than on actually minimizing their environmental impact. This was big news for me. If a label on a package says that it's recyclable, you'd think that it would actually be recyclable. Like myself, many of us are uneducated on what exactly greenwashing is, allowing it to occur more often than environmental action itself. Too often, we blindly fall for false marketing when companies use terms such as sustainable or eco friendly. How many times have you taken a look at your cereal box just to find the vague all natural or chemical free and wondered what it really meant? So today, let's precipitate over the detrimental effects of this false marketing, keep our eye on its causes, and finally bond over the solutions to greenwashing. Pollution is seemingly unstoppable. Global warming has never been as rampant as before, and there have been increasingly more and more distressing calls to take action against the detriment of our planet. As efforts in conservation increase, we invest more in companies that make that vision of a healthy world happen. But what if all of our efforts have amounted to nothing? And that's my first harm of greenwashing. According to study finds, 71% of Americans believe companies' claims to be sustainable, even when they aren't. Let this sink in for a minute. We are blindly buying products that we believe better the environment when we have no idea where they really go. By supporting companies who greenwash their buyers, we are ignoring the giant environmental footprint that these companies are making and allowing them to continuously falsely brand their businesses. We keep an eye out for products that say eco-friendly when they actually often increase the effects of climate change. And this is my next harm. We all know and love the company, Starbucks. My personal favorite is the peach green tea lemonade. It's so good. According to Reason magazine, in 2018, Starbucks promised to replace its single-use plastic straws and lids with just nitro lids. And by 2019, this practice was implemented. But to satisfy the growing public demands of going strawless, Starbucks ultimately increased its plastic usage. Willing to greenwash their consumers, they only use their green as a green cover, fitting the green we demand, but not the real green we need. The cause that we put our cash towards never happens. So of course the plastic just keeps piling up onto our landfills, on our streets, and even polluting our oceans. And this leads me to my third harm. The ease and profitability of greenwashing the public into blindly and naively buying sustainable products encourages companies to further partake in greenwashing. Climate Conscious declared that in 2021, US consumers spend $150 billion on sustainable products. Now that's a big price that comes with a small tag that says eco-friendly. With easy money on the line, little consequences for greenwashing induce a positive loop, cascading more and more companies to further partake in greenwashing. So why is all of this happening? What are the causes of greenwashing? Well, for starters, our lack of regulation today results in consumers falling for these scams. As of now, greenwashing in America is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, also known as the FTC. But it is incredibly difficult for the FTC to hold companies accountable for greenwashing, as the FTC is only allowed to go after companies who deliberately use explicitly false statements, instead of just misleading claims. Though not outright lying, companies can get away with greenwashing by twisting or exaggerating the truth to their advantage. One such example is the clothing brand Zara. Alex Sassone, the CEO of Panaprium, claims that Zara pledged to stop using toxic chemicals by 2020. However, Zara, as well as many other fast fashion brands and retailers, often claim that their garments are natural, organic, or recycled, when only a small portion of them actually are. In addition to the lack of regulation today, another cause of greenwashing is the public's desire to reduce pollution. Younger generations and more modern families often choose to buy eco-friendly, giving greenwashing companies a comparative edge in the industry, as well as a false reliability. Take, for instance, Nestle, one of the largest food and beverage companies worldwide. They produce bottled water, chocolate candy wrappers, and coffee pods, all of which are single-use plastics. Although Nestle promised to eradicate its plastic packaging, according to Greenpeace, Nestle's statement on plastic packaging includes more of the same greenwashing baby steps and won't include clear targets or a timeline to eradicate its plastic packaging. Nestle's clear negligence on true action illustrates how irresponsible even the most reputable companies are. The third cause, like in all things business, is the pure hunger for money. The whole point of owning a company, unless you're a nonprofit organization, is to earn a profit. And not just earn a profit, but maximize your profit. Companies only greenwash their consumers to earn higher profits. If this monetary incentive was taken away, companies would no longer be as tempted to greenwash. So maybe this is what our world has come to. Companies greenwashing the general public with complete disregard for the environment. Despite this crippling issue, there is still hope to make things better. But how do we stop large and influential companies like Nestle and Starbucks from targeting the mass public and misadvertising their products as green? To address the lack of transparency we have today, I propose that we mandate or check certain labels on consumer products for validity. As of now, the FTC Green Guides do not address the use of terms natural, organic, or sustainable. If the FTC were to provide a list of definitions for all of these vague greenwashing terms, companies would no longer be able to escape the negative consequences of greenwashing. To address my second cause, I propose a singular state government mandated lesson that could be implemented into all middle school and high school science curriculum. This curriculum will teach students what greenwashing is and how to correctly identify companies that greenwash. In addition, this curriculum will only take up a short amount of time for both teachers and students within the school year and effectively be able to spread knowledge about greenwashing. Finally, as my third solution, the US government should implement a fine for companies that greenwash. According to Communicate magazine, in April of 2021, France introduced one of the first greenwashing laws worldwide, which fined companies 80% of their false promotional campaign. If America were to also introduce such a legislation, reputational damage for these companies would overweigh lacking a sustainability strategy to begin with. In other words, this regulation by the French government will heavily fine those who partake in greenwashing and prevent companies from using misleading claims in the future. My chem final turned in on time, thank goodness. But the environment can't wait. More and more animals are becoming endangered, more and more pollution is created, and more companies not only cause these adverse harms to the environment, but are getting away with it. No consequences meant. So the next time you plan on buying a product that says environmentally friendly, think green or greenwashing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then next speaker is Barbara. Pathological errors.
Yes, hi. Can all the judges hear me? Okay, and you all got the title of my speech in the chat? Perfect. So judges, let me know when you're ready, and then I'll get going. Okay. Okay, we good to go? Awesome. Psst. Hey, I have a secret to tell you, but you have to promise not to tell anyone else. In the second grade, I became a pathological liar. Okay, let me take a step back. See, like most American public schools, my elementary school created a system to help students read at a higher level. Reading logs. The concept was simple. Read one book a week, write it down on your log, and have your parents sign it. Honestly, it was a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, the American public education system forgot one key thing. That most second graders are lying bastards, myself included. It took me not 3, not 2, but 1 week to start writing down books I had no intention of reading and forging my parents' signatures. And here's the other thing. Your reading level directly correlated to the difficulty of the books you read. As an 8-year-old, I didn't have many things to gloat about, so when it came time to impress my second grade crush, I whipped out Old Reliable. No, that's not what I meant. Here's how it went. You see, Susie, I read at a 5th grade level. And that's how you do it. Take notes. Of course, it didn't take long for my school to realize that it was impossible for an 8-year-old to read War and Peace, the Communist Manifesto, and the 5th Harry Potter book all in 1 week. Alas, my genius plan was foiled. The long-term consequences of scamming my way through reading logs were kind of bad. For example, I still don't know the difference between affect and effect. So I just used the word consequences in my sentences instead. While my elementary school certainly had the best of intentions, it didn't exactly execute its job flawlessly. And while the result of their exploitable system is the 6-foot semi-illiterate buffoon standing in front of you, there are real harms that follow when an institution creates a broken system. And unfortunately, there's an institution that isn't our schools that has already created one of these broken systems. I'm referring to the American foster care system. Most people generally know that foster care is the system where the government takes children from unsafe environments, and places them into the care of state-approved foster parents. Most people also generally know that the foster care system is rife with its own issues. Look, you know the bar is set low. When the third fill-in option for foster parents on Google is how much do foster parents get paid? Yikes. But in all seriousness, our foster care system is dramatically worse than you could have ever imagined. Because right now, it is a pipeline to sex trafficking. The National Foster Youth Institute recently estimated that 60% of sex trafficking victims have been in foster care. And in 2014, New York authorities estimated that over 85% of child sex trafficking victims in the area were once part of the child welfare system. Our foster care system is essentially a pipeline to sex trafficking. And as a result, the most vulnerable members of our society are suffering. As snubbed poet laureate and my personal hype man Big Sean would say, you know the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And that's exactly what foster care is. Something with good intentions. Before foster care, if your parents died, you'd probably end up dying too. Now, you get to be placed into the care of a state-approved foster agency, where you are 5 times more likely to have anxiety and 7 times more likely to have depression. Progress. Seriously though, our foster care system is in disarray. Foster children are either placed into group homes or with foster care families, but both can lead to harmful consequences. Group homes are overcrowded and lack basic supervision. Foster children who deal with trauma relating to the reason why they're in foster care in the first place can feel detached from their supervisors. It's not uncommon for these children to run away from home. And because vetting procedures for foster parents are so simple, children often face neglect and even abuse at the hands of their foster parents. So, it's not uncommon for children living with foster parents to also run away from home. As vulnerable minors with severe trauma, foster children are easy targets for sex traffickers who lure them into lives of forced labor and abuse. Sex traffickers exploit foster youth's needs for love and attention, often offering something desirable at first and then trapping them. Keisha, a 14-year-old foster child from Florida, was one of these targeted youths. Keisha faced sexual violence in her foster home and decided to run away. She met with a man who promised he could return her to her biological family. Instead, he physically assaulted her and coerced her into solicitation. After she was arrested, Keisha was sent back to that same abusive foster home where she ran away again. The same man preyed on her, forcing her back into sexual labor against her will. Eventually, with the help of a social service worker, Keisha was able to escape her situation and finish her GED. But not everyone is as fortunate as Keisha. Many foster children never escape their trafficking situation. In its 2013 address to Congress, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children argued that foster children are easy targets. They are most susceptible to the manipulation and false promises that traffickers use to secure their trust and dependency. These children have fractured safety nets and few alternatives. Look, it's easy to write off foster children and forget about this whole thing. Heck, the US government seems to be doing that just fine. But it's worth noting that this system is a huge embarrassment to the US and its infrastructure. Sex trafficking is obviously horrific, but what's unimaginable is a US government-funded service being a direct pipeline to it. Foster care costs taxpayers $22 billion a year, which means that a portion of your taxes goes towards funding this broken system. we can have all the billionaires in space and F-15 bombers that we'd like. But we're undeniably a worse country when we can't protect our vulnerable children. We're a worse country when we pay for a system that leads children directly into the clutches of sexual predators. And we're a worse country when we identify our problems and look the other way. It's time to collapse the pipeline. To solve this issue, I advocate for the federal government to pass legislation that implements California's Continuum of Care Reform Act on a national level. California's Continuum of Care Reform Act prioritizes extensive background checks on foster care families and embraces family-based placements over group homes. CCR cut group homes by about 1/3 and created a high bar for foster care parents, even those who adopt through private providers. By raising the bar for foster care families and embracing family-based placements over group homes, CCR has directly targeted the inequities in the system and begun to fix them. Only through adequate adult supervision can the foster care pipeline to sex trafficking be crushed. I don't need to reiterate how awful sex trafficking is, or how inconceivable it is that a government-funded service is a direct pipeline to it. Those are facts that speak for themselves. What is worth reiterating is that we cannot call ourselves a first world country, a progressive country, when we allow for the exploitation of parentless children. The US government has failed to create an equitable system that achieves what it set out to do. To even begin to correct its mistakes, the government must pass California's Continuum of Care Reform Act on a national level. And maybe then we can build better systems that don't fall prey to pathological liars. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was pretty much everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's everyone.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for judging.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I'm glad we got to judge with this panel.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.